The air smelled like money. Not fresh, not metallic, but filtered, cold, and clean. The kind of air that only circulates in first-class cabins, where silence is a service and eye contact is optional. Somewhere between rows 1A and 1C, a champagne flute clinked gently. A tray of macadamia nuts trembled slightly as turbulence of a different kind entered the aisle. He didn't rush. He never did. Ezra Cole stepped aboard with the quiet gravity of a man who understood time not as hours, but as currency. His clothes didn't say wealth. They said intention. A simple gray shirt, soft navy slacks, no tie. And yet, as he approached seat 1A, the flight attendant's smile evaporated like mist in morning light. "Excuse me, sir. First class is reserved," she said, her hand raised like a velvet rope. "You'll need to verify your credentials, or return to economy." He looked at her, not unkindly, then looked at the seat. His seat. 12 minutes later, that same flight would still be grounded. The co-pilot would be gone. The lead flight attendant would be dismissed. And America would learn what silent power looks like when it doesn't blink. Because the man they profiled wasn't just another black passenger with a premium ticket. He was the CEO of the airline. They just didn't see him. They never do. If you believe stories like this matter, the ones about resilience, justice, and being underestimated but never undone, take a second to like, share, and subscribe. We tell the stories others try to silence, and sometimes the ones they never see coming. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. Now fasten your seatbelt, because just a few rows ahead a man is about to be told he doesn't belong. And he's about to show the sky exactly who owns it. He didn't carry a rolling suitcase, just a soft leather bag, the strap worn at the corners. The overhead lights reflected off his faded brown shoes, the kind of leather that once gleamed but now sagged like folded paper softened by years. Ezra Cole, 52, stepped onto the Aurora jetline aircraft with the calm of someone long accustomed to being assessed by glances instead of resumes. He wore a plain gray shirt, sleeves loosely rolled, no watch, no badge, a quiet black man, one who didn't need anyone to clear the way, but who also knew no one would be waiting to welcome him. Seat 1A was at the front of the cabin, to the left, the kind of seat reserved for those permitted to recline first, the kind who get asked champagne or sparkling, not, "Are you sure this is your seat?" The nearest flight attendant spotted him the moment he stepped into the jet bridge. Her eyes scanned him like a misread barcode, no price returned. Nothing about Ezra triggered her instinct to link him with first class. No designer belt, no stylish coat, no deferential gaze, just a black man walking in like the world owed him something. And to her that was enough cause for suspicion. Ezra didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on the front row, where the LED light cast a gentle glow on seat 1A. Still empty. Pillow folded. Headrest cover perfectly creased. He reached into his shirt pocket, touched the boarding pass not to confirm it, but as a silent ritual. A way to remind himself he had earned this seat with a life lived upright. He took 2 more steps. And then the silence was sliced by a voice smooth as silk, cold as a honed blade. "Sir, I need you to stop." Female voice. He didn't look up yet. "This section is for priority guests only. Please present verification, or return to the main cabin if you need assistance." Not a hint of tremor in the phrasing. "No, we apologize. No, if you please." Just a line rehearsed for people the system assumes are in the wrong place. She stood tall, legs crossed slightly like posing for a camera. Behind her, other passengers were already settled. Some pretended not to notice. Some peeked like they were witnessing a small disruption that needed quiet correction. Ezra looked at her. No smile. No anger. He slowly drew the boarding pass from his chest pocket and held it out between 2 fingers. No wasted words. She took it the same way 2 fingers like one handles a letter from an unknown sender. Eyes flicked over the QR code. Her brow furrowed. "Unverified," she pronounced, like delivering a sentence. "I'll call security if you don't return to your assigned seat." She said it loud and clear. enough for the three closest passengers to hear. A white man across the aisle slid his carry-on closer to his feet as if Ezra's presence was some kind of leak from the lower floors of society. Ezra didn't move. He looked at the flight attendant's hand where the boarding pass trembled ever so slightly. Not from wind, but from the grip of someone whose confidence was thinner than the justice she claimed to uphold. Then he looked at seat 1C already occupied. Not empty. A middle-aged white man sat sprawled across it, taking up space like it belonged to him. Charcoal gray suit, bright red tie. A crocodile leather briefcase spread across the seat beside him. Like a declaration, this space is mine and for people like me. Gordon Wynn. His name appeared on the luggage tag. Managing director of a private equity firm. Minor partner of Aurora Jetline, self-described as part of the high-altitude ecosystem. He didn't look at Ezra as if he were a passenger. He looked at him like he was a janitor who had wandered into the VIP entrance. A mistake. An inconvenience. As Ezra stood quietly, Gordon bent forward, scribbled something on a piece of paper, folded it, placed it on seat 1A, not a word. Ezra saw the note, didn't pick it up, didn't react, because he knew this wasn't the first time. And today, for the first time, was not about reacting. Today, he was observing something deeper. This wasn't a passenger being denied. This was the owner of the airline, posing as a passenger, conducting an ethics test of his own making. And the flight crew had just failed it at the cabin door. "Sir, I'll need you to present either a financial verification document or a special priority pass if you wish to remain in this seat." Denise spoke without blinking. Her voice was steady, nearly calm, but beneath it lay a thin sheet of tension, like glass stretched too far. She was walking a tightrope between protocol and prejudice. Ezra tilted his head slightly, studying the flight attendant the way one studies a blurred image, no anger. No surprise, just the recognition of something all too familiar. "What more do I need to verify?" he asked. Besides a first-class ticket with my name clearly printed, his voice wasn't raised. It wasn't sharp. But each word landed like a stone placed carefully on a fragile tiled floor. Denise didn't step back. Something in her eyes had shifted. It was no longer about duty. It was about assumed authority. The authority of someone used to being recognized as correct. While people like him were considered out of place, a woman in the row behind fumbled with her phone, lifted it, then hesitated. But the young Asian man in seat 2D didn't hesitate. He quietly turned on his camera, not aiming it overtly, but not hiding it either. The first frame captured the moment Ezra was asked to prove his seat while every white passenger around him sat unchallenged, unverified. On the small LED panel above the cabin, the boarding complete sign had just turned off. The aircraft door was sealed. But the door of bias had never been open. Ezra didn't show another document. He simply took his seat in 1A, calmly, like he was the one conducting the assessment, not the other way around. And, in truth, he was. The young Asian man was Theo Lin, a well-known travel blogger. He'd flown more than 70 times with Aurora Jetline, written over 200 cabin reviews, but never had he seen a passenger checked for the color of their skin. The moment the cabin lights dimmed, Theo recognized Ezra Cole. That face had appeared on the cover of an independent aviation magazine 3 months prior. Rebuilding the Skies, Ezra Cole and the Virion Aeronautics Empire. CEO, engineer, innovator. The man who transformed rigid business cabins into quiet sanctuaries infused with fuel-efficient design and contemporary African art. But now, on a plane designed by his own company, he was being asked to prove he belonged. Theo tightened his grip on the phone. But he didn't post yet. Not out of fear, but observation. He wanted to see what this man would do. Not just any man, but the very architect of the system that was now rejecting him. Ezra remained silent. No defiance. No defense. He sat upright, hands resting calmly on his thighs as if time no longer belonged to the crew, but to him. Meanwhile, 2,000 miles away, inside a Virion Aeronautics operations room, Ezra's executive assistant, Rhea Armand, was monitoring the flight via internal system interface. An alert lit up her screen. Passenger 1A, status unverified. She frowned. This wasn't random. Couldn't be a system glitch. And her instincts, the kind honed by dozens of strategy briefings and hundreds of scouting flights, began to spark. On a 10-inch touchscreen embedded inside the first-class service panel, lead flight attendant Denise Marlowe scrolled through the passenger manifest. One name appeared. Ezra Cole, 1A, flagged verification pending. She tapped the status field. A menu slid upward. Confirm, annotate, or flag as unverified. Without hesitation, she selected the third. Submitting status unverified reason appears mismatched. No clear ID. One tap, one bias, one conclusion drawn without evidence. She didn't ask for ID, didn't radio the ground team, just executed a simple gesture flagging the black man in seat 1A as unverified. And just like that, she believed she had cleansed the first-class cabin of a perceived disruption. Back at Virion's ground control center, Rhea Armand received a string of cascading alerts from the internal log. Alert passenger 1A, status changed to unverified source crew tablet, flight AJ412, Aurora jetline note attached visual mismatch, no priority badge. Rhea's hand froze mid-air, teacup suspended. Visual mismatch, she repeated under her breath. That term did not exist in Virion's official operational lexicon. It wasn't a security code, not a compliance protocol. It was metaphor, shadow language that surfaces only when bias is embedded into a company's DNA. Rhea expanded the screen, reviewing the full action log. Less than 40 seconds earlier, flight attendant Marlowe had scrolled through the manifest without scanning a QR code. No ID check. No digital confirmation. Just one action: select someone to exclude. The next system log appeared like a whisper inside a stream of code. Tag manual override. No verification process initiated. Rhea typed rapidly. She didn't sound an alarm, didn't take immediate action. But in her gut, she knew exactly what was unfolding. This wasn't a system flaw, it was behavior, intentional, targeted. She stared at the line turning red. Ezra Cole, 1A. In Virion's internal grading system, this coded as a level 1 security flag normally reserved for minor discrepancies. But for someone like him, this wasn't just an insult. It was a slap to the entire framework he had engineered to end this kind of exclusion. Rhea didn't need to ask what her boss was thinking. She already knew he was silent, watching, remembering. And when someone like Ezra Cole goes silent, it's never because he's powerless. It's because he's waiting for the exact moment to teach the system a lesson in the language it understands best. Data, truth, and undeniable evidence. Ezra Cole didn't move, didn't exhale hard, didn't crack his knuckles like a man preparing to retaliate. He simply tilted his head just enough for the smart band on his left wrist to slip into view beneath the light gray sleeve. A tap, soft as the turn of a page. No one noticed, or if they did, they assumed he was just checking the flight time. But the system took the command. Echo 3 internal compliance protocol, initiated, live data sync with Virion Core, cabin mic sync, cabin cam sync, manifest capture in progress. At ground level, inside Virion Aeronautics headquarters, the coordination interface changed color. The display shifted from green to soft amber, the tone reserved for ethical surveillance in progress. Rhea Armand understood immediately. Ezra didn't need to say a word. She typed a few lines, confirming that Echo 3 was now active. From this moment on, every movement in the cabin would be recorded, each breath, every word spoken, every screen tap by the crew. Ezra didn't back down, didn't protest, didn't declare. Let me be clear. He knew in this era, truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be fully documented and released at the right time. The first-class cabin remained intentionally quiet. The wealthy are accustomed to silence as a privilege. But today, that silence would become evidence. A few rows behind, Theo Lin was still recording. He didn't know what the video would become, but he knew it was capturing a moment that might rewrite a system once thought untouchable. The flight attendant had no idea, but her tablet and her behavior were now archived in a secure encrypted database. Uneditable, indelible. Echo 3 had begun, and Ezra, still seated, knew that from this point forward, every misdirected glance would be logged into a report. Less than 2 minutes later, Mark Elston, the flight's co-pilot, appeared, broad-shouldered, square-faced, tension visibly clinging to his brow. Denise whispered something to him. No one heard exactly what, but the moment she finished, Mark turned toward Ezra, eyes locking on him like he was an unexpected malfunction delaying takeoff. He marched over, stopped in front of 1A, and leaned just enough to simulate courtesy. "Sir, I need you to vacate this seat immediately." "No, I'm sorry. No, there seems to be a misunderstanding. Just a bare command." Ezra looked up slowly. "On what grounds?" "You're not listed as verified. If you refuse to comply, we'll involve security." That statement, rooted in no official airline protocol, was delivered with the confidence of someone accustomed to wielding unquestioned power. Ezra didn't stand. He simply placed his hand on the armrest. That gesture, calm, deliberate, was both an anchor and a declaration of dignity. The Echo 3 system immediately flagged the moment. "Command escalation without verification." From the rear of the cabin, a soft click. Another passenger had begun recording with a second device. A young woman furrowed her brow, her expression shifting from confusion to concern. Rhea received the data in real time. Audio tagged verbal pressure, 0 ID request. "We've just entered phase 2, she murmured, then typed quietly into the annotation field, "Ejection order issued without identity verification. Escalation logged." Mark Elston stood firm, expecting resistance. But none came, only the weight of silence, and within that silence, a surveillance network working second by second. It happened in 3 seconds. Clay Ridge, an internal security agent for Aurora Jetline, approached from behind. No prior announcement, no badge presented, no assessment of the situation. He moved like someone trained to remove obstructions rather than protect customers. "You need to put that device away now," Clay barked, eyes fixed on the small tablet in Ezra's hand. Ezra didn't respond. The tablet wasn't making noise, wasn't recording video. It was displaying his private executive interface, a live operations monitor reserved for senior shareholders. Didn't matter. Clay reached out and with a sudden motion, struck the tablet from Ezra's hand. A loud clack. The tablet flew to the floor, skidding before settling beneath seat 1B. A woman in 3B instinctively covered her mouth. A male passenger in 2D gasped, "Oh my God." And Theo Lin. He captured everything. His camera trembled slightly but didn't stop. The 18-second clip would be uploaded in less than 2 minutes. Rhea received the data instantly. Physical interference detected. Tag contact with executive device. Her screen lit up. A dialog box popped open. Recommendation: initiate internal emergency protocol, Echo 3B. Rhea remained calm, but inside she knew this was the moment the truth began to defend itself. Clay bent to retrieve the device, but Ezra raised a hand, calm. Quiet. He picked it up himself. With his left hand, no words. No need for words. The system was already speaking for him. Inside Virion's operations center, the lights never dim, there is no such thing as night. But on the large central screen, a red warning flashed like a blade slicing through still air. Alteration detected. Manifest entry for seat 1A. Deleted. Source FA device. Roth E. Rhea Armand sat upright. The cup of tea next to her had gone cold. Untouched. She typed rapidly, pulling up the most recent actions from Emma Roth's device, the junior flight attendant who had arrived late during the pre-boarding chaos, but was now the first to interfere with the passenger manifest. The logs were clear. Emma had accessed the manifest, located the name Ezra Cole, and deleted the field labeled Confirmed Owner Access. No verification, no authorization, no standard protocol. Just one touch, and Ezra's identity vanished from the cabin system, as if he had never existed. Rhea clenched her jaw. She launched the internal Echo 3 playback, reviewing the forward cabin cam. The footage loaded. Emma, head tilted, quickly swiping across the screen, stealthy. No announcement made. The internal timestamp caught it all. 04-13-22. Roth. E. Edits Manifest 04-13-24. Entry. Ezra Cole status set to none. 04-13-26. Manifest auto refresh. In under 4 seconds, a black man, the owner of the aircraft, was erased from official recognition. "This isn't a mistake," Rhea whispered. "This is deliberate manipulation." She sent the full data set to Virion's legal chief, Celeste Harlan. The subject line was brief. "Manipulation confirmed. Start Phase 2. The sky may be high, but ethical standards should never be dragged this low." Back in seat 2D, Theo Lin was still recording, but this time, his hands were trembling. Not from fear, but from the weight of knowing he was documenting something far greater than any cabin review he'd ever written. A man erased from his rightful place, not with a shove, not with a shout, but with a cold digital command. A form of discrimination that had evolved to fit the digital age. He reviewed his clip, Ezra being asked to vacate his seat, the tablet knocked away, that unwavering look, not pleading, not angry, but centered, controlled. Theo typed quickly. "This is Ezra Cole, CEO of Virion Aeronautics. He owns the aircraft. He designed its systems, and he's being profiled." He attached a frame Ezra seated in 1A, surrounded by 3 airline staff mid-dispute, while he sat motionless, unbothered. He hit post. The post launched like a digital arrow, slicing through the internet. In just 3 minutes, it surpassed 1.2 million views. Comments surged in, "Are you serious? He owns the airline name and shame. This has to stop. Tag the FAA. Tag every journalist." A reporter from a major international outlet sent a direct message. "DM me now. We'll run it tonight." Simultaneously, at Virion HQ, Rhea received a new alert. External pressure spike, public identification lev. Ezra Cole's face, familiar from Forbes covers, TEDx stages, and global aerospace summits, was now becoming the symbol of silence broken. No need for a speech, no public outcry. Just presence and data to bear witness. Clay Ridge, the security agent, stood near Ezra, his posture beginning to shift from authoritative to defensive. Whispers spread across the cabin. Several passengers pulled out their phones, not to record, but to Google. From a few rows back, a brown-skinned woman whispered, "Is that really him, the guy who redesigned aircraft interiors, the one who worked with NASA?" Denise Marlowe heard it. She felt the cracks forming in the air around her. But before she could respond, Ezra looked up. No resentment, no defiance, just one sentence, loud enough for the first 3 rows. "You just racially profiled the owner of this airline. And you did it while the system was recording every second." No one responded. No one had to. Denise took a step back. Clay looked down at his shoes. The cabin fell silent. But it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of realization. A moment when everyone understood they had just witnessed something indefensible. No one shouted. No one slammed a fist. Only Ezra, sitting tall as if his authority came not from title, but from a lifetime of being dismissed, and never once stepping back. The aircraft hadn't left the ground, but the story had already taken flight, soaring beyond the ceiling of the plane, beyond the bounds of a single incident, and now racing toward a global reckoning. The first-class cabin fell silent like a polished hardwood floor, gleaming, tense, and fragile. Everyone felt something had shattered, but no one dared to name it. Then Ezra Cole stood up. For the first time since boarding, he left his seat, not in haste, not in protest. Just a quiet movement like a train rolling forward without horn or fuel, powered only by the inertia of truth. Denise stepped back half a pace, not out of fear but instinct. Mark Elston looked over at Clay Ridge, eyes silently asking, "What now?" Ezra didn't look at anyone. He simply smoothed his sleeve, adjusting the cuff of his light gray shirt, the same shirt someone had judged unfit for seat 1A. Then he spoke, slow, clear, no microphone needed. "The chain of command on this aircraft has been compromised, and I will restore it." His words fell like the strike of a gavel, not dramatic but echoing like a morning bell. A woman in row 3 clutched her chest. A man in 2B pulled out his phone, not to film, but to search. Ezra Cole. The name flooded search engines. CEO, lead engineer, co-founder of Virion. The man who once turned down a board seat at the nation's largest aerospace firm because he refused to be a black token. In the cabin, gazes shifted. They no longer saw Ezra as a disruptive passenger. They saw him as the only one in control of this aircraft, not by hand on the yoke, but by the weight of principle. At the top floor of Virion headquarters, Celeste Harlan, chief legal counsel, stood before the live internal feed. She wasn't easily shaken, but what Rhea had just sent made her blink once the entire evening. The data was undeniable. Ezra Cole, verified owner access. Flight crew interference, confirmed. Unauthorized manifest alteration, logged by Roth. Physical contact, logged by Ridge, Craw. Celeste tapped record. She knew the cabin was being monitored, and she knew exactly what to say. Her voice came through Ezra's earpiece but also rang out over the Echo internal comm system. This is Celeste Harlan, Chief Legal Counsel for Virion Aeronautics. I confirm Mr. Ezra Cole is the CEO and co-owner of this flight. Any obstruction, physical contact, or data manipulation involving Mr. Cole constitutes a direct violation of corporate conduct policy and will be reviewed by our disciplinary board. Denise froze. Mark started forward, then stopped. Clay stepped back, like someone who'd touched a live wire. Ezra didn't need to say another word. Another form of power, quiet, real, had just spoken. Celeste concluded with a single sentence. From this moment forward, any action against Mr. Cole will be classified as a high-level internal breach. The entire cabin fell into silence again. But it was no longer the silence of ignorance. It was the silence of realization that they had just crossed a boundary they hadn't known was there. Outside the starboard window, the blue glow of runway lights bled across the glass. But no one noticed. Every eye was now fixed on Ezra Cole. The black man who was told to vacate his seat for being unverified was now standing in first class like a tower. No sword, no shield, just the truth behind him. A white passenger in 1D bowed his head, hand trembling as he pulled the window shade. Another brown-skinned, about 30 in a hoodie and headphones whispered, "First time I've seen someone like him, stand without having to shout." From the back of the cabin, a deep, steady voice called out, "We've seen this before, but we've never seen it end like this." Heads turned. It was a middle-aged black man in a leather jacket, face resolute. He didn't stand. He didn't need to. Because what he said spoke for a generation that had stayed quiet too long. Theo Lin glanced at his camera. He knew this moment wouldn't just be another viral clip. It was documentation, a turning point. Ezra turned his head slowly toward the man. He didn't nod. He didn't need to. Between them stretched a silent thread, a bond between men long used to being displaced, but never disqualified. From this point forward, every word in that cabin would be recorded. But some statements didn't need to be captured by tech, because they had already been etched into the spines and memories of those who understood that, sometimes, to change a system, you only need to stand still at the right time. Ezra Cole turned to face the front of the cabin. The atmosphere had shifted, no longer the tight strain of silent prejudice, but a quiet awakening, as if everyone realized they were sitting inside a turning point. He stood tall, arms relaxed at his sides. The collar of his gray shirt, no longer hidden by his seat, emerged like the insignia of a role that never needed announcing, only embodying. His gaze met each crew member, not with anger, not with scorn, but enough to make each of them feel measured. Then he spoke. "Captain Marlowe, First Officer Elston, Crew Roth, Security Officer Ridge, you have violated ethical protocols, internal policy, and your duty to passengers. Effective immediately, you are relieved of duty." A silent shockwave rippled through the cabin. Denise Marlowe's lips parted as if to speak, but no sound emerged. Her voice stalled somewhere in the back of her throat. Mark Elston, usually defiant, was frozen. His right hand clenched, as if ready to respond, but his eyes had already grasped what his ego could not. His power had never been permanent. Emma Roth shielded her tablet as if a digital screen could cover up a moral failure. It couldn't. Clay Ridge, the man who knocked Ezra's device to the floor, looked down at his shoes, then up again. The defiance gone. Only exposure remained. Ezra didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Each clause landed like a final sentence. There would be no discussion. No, we were just following procedure. Because they were the procedure, and the procedure was broken. A small LED screen above the front cabin lit up. White text glowed on a silver-gray background. Legal override confirmed. All orders validated issuer. Ezra Cole, CEO. Virion Aeronautics. Executive authority active. The entire flight crew looked up, summoned not by rank, but by truth that no uniform could outrank. Then Celeste Harlan's voice returned over the echo intercom. That same voice firm as the legal backbone of a global aerospace empire. I confirm that all orders issued by Mr. Ezra Cole are immediately enforceable under Article 7 of the Shareholder Charter. Grounds for dismissal: gross violation of passenger ethics, systemic discriminatory conduct, and unauthorized data manipulation. The air tightened. Someone exhaled sharply. Another looked around for grounding, but no one objected. Not a single but. A small icon lit up on the monitor. Cabin camera is live streaming to the operations center. Audio captured. Data logged. No erasing this. Emma Roth shrank into her seat, as if the chair itself was rejecting her. Denise turned to face Ezra half a step forward, then stopped. Any defense she had was too late. What she once considered professional habit had just been reframed intentional discrimination. And Ezra, he stood there, no roar, no triumph. Just calm, like a man who had completed a quality audit and confirmed the system is defective at its core. A sharp, dry chuckle broke the stillness. Gordon Wynne, one hand resting on the armrest like a senator entering a hearing room, leaned back and called out, "And what about me? I only asked for peace and quiet. I didn't do anything wrong." Ezra turned his eyes toward him. Not sharp, not mocking. Just the look of a man who had seen that defense too many times. "I didn't shout. I didn't shove. I just implied you didn't belong." Ezra stepped forward, slow, measured. "You left a note on my seat. You silently enabled the manipulation of my presence. And you decided I didn't belong here based solely on how I dress, how I walk." He paused, then delivered the verdict. "I'm not firing you. I'm banning you. Permanently." A beat of silence, then soft murmurs from behind. Not protest approval. The kind of approval held back for too long, from people who had seen this pattern, but never seen it end like this. A black woman in her 40s, wearing a teal blouse, whispered into the space around her. He didn't just fire them. He rewrote the air we're breathing. Gordon Wynne sat back, his eyes dulled, no longer fixed on seat 1A, but on the void where his status had just fallen. Ezra returned to his seat, no further statement needed. This story didn't require a closing remark. It ended with a permanent shift in how a system must now perceive itself. Ezra Cole returned to seat 1A, but now, he was no longer just the man in a gray shirt and worn-down shoes. Before sitting, he removed his outer coat, revealing a perfectly tailored navy suit underneath. On the left lapel, a small pin caught the cabin light. The emblem of Virion Aeronautics, a silver wing soaring across a golden horizon. It wasn't a declaration. It was evidence. No one said a word as he sat. No applause. No congratulations. They just watched. The stares no longer flickered between suspicion and admiration. Now, they held recognition from those who once doubted him to those who had quietly witnessed everything unfold. No one asked, "Who is he anymore?" That question had been replaced by a silent gratitude. The previous flight crew had exited. The new captain hadn't arrived. The new crew hadn't entered. And yet there was no panic, because now leadership was present. Ezra reopened his tablet, the same device once knocked to the floor. Now it rested firmly on his lap. The screen displayed Internal Authority Status Full Access. His fingers glided gently across the interface. A new command was issued. It wasn't sent to any specific person. It didn't call for names. It was just a quiet correction, subtle, but deep to make justice the default, not the exception. Inside the Virion Operations Center, Rhea Armand received an unscheduled transmission. Horizon Protocol, Armand activate source, CEO terminal, flight AJ412, cabin 1A. She didn't reply. She just nodded silently at the screen and entered 3 short commands. Within 10 seconds, the entire Virion network shifted from its signature blue to a soft silver-gold hue, the color of a new horizon. The Horizon Protocol, the Horizon Equity System, was now live. An AI-driven system monitoring discriminatory behavior, passenger bias, and data manipulation within aircraft cabins. Not to detect it once, but to eliminate it forever. On the monitors inside the cabin, a soft banner appeared. Now active Horizon Equity Monitoring. Live sentiment and bias detection engaged. Flight crew actions will be assessed in real time. Passengers read the notice. No one looked nervous. A few even nodded slightly. From this moment on, every glance from a flight attendant would be a decision, and every decision would be recorded. Ezra tilted his head, looking out the small cabin window. The runway was still dark, but the guiding lights stretched forward endlessly. This flight hadn't taken off. And yet, during its time grounded, he had accomplished what the aviation industry had avoided for decades. Returning the right to exist to those who had once been erased from the manifest with a single tap. The cabin screens lit up. Not harsh, but like the first light of morning. On each screen, a new logo appeared, unveiled to passengers for the first time. A silver horizon cutting across a golden sky. No slogan, no branding. But everyone understood, and everyone fell silent. A female passenger raised her hand to her mouth, eyes fixed on the image. A man whispered, "They just redrew the definition of a flight." Theo Lin was still recording, but now, he wasn't filming Ezra. He was capturing the faces in the cabin, each one. Each expression bearing witness to a moment when justice didn't need to be announced, only felt. From the operations cabin, Celeste Harlan sent out the first broadcast. The Horizon Protocol is now active across the entire Virion system. Behavioral indicators of bias, unconscious exclusion, and data manipulation will be continuously monitored by ethical AI. Misconduct will no longer hide in the dark. Ezra read the message, then leaned back into his seat. Not to rest, but to make room for others, because true justice, when it arrives, doesn't need to bear the name of one person. It just needs to be present. And today, in this softly lit cabin, among those who once stayed silent, justice arrived. Flight AJ412 never left the ground that night, but the aftershocks it caused reached farther than any mapped air route ever could. 48 hours later, the FAA Federal Aviation Administration issued an official statement. A full investigation is now open into the entire crew of Aurora Jetline Flight AJ412. Incidents involving data tampering, discriminatory conduct, and procedural violations are now under federal review. The names Denise Marlowe, Mark Elston, Emma Roth, and Clay Ridge appeared across aviation industry headlines. At the same time, 3 major investment firms previously in strategic partnership with Gordon Wynn's company announced the termination of their contracts. The reason: unethical conduct with significant negative impact on public trust. A feature in Aviation World Journal ran the headline, "The most public equity audit ever: how a black CEO grounded more than just a flight." The media didn't just report the event. They analyzed it. They debated it. They no longer viewed Ezra Cole merely as a CEO, but as a moral calibration point, erected at the very entrance of an industry long accustomed to hiding prejudice behind tailored suits and polite microphones. Ezra gave no interviews. He issued no victory statements. He simply released a short notice from Virion. True change is not about what we are forced to face. It's about how we redesign the system so no one else has to face it again. 1 week later, at a private airfield in northern Maryland, a small press conference was held. No red carpet, no model hosts, just a quiet room, rows of wooden chairs. Ezra Cole stepped to the podium and placed a small wooden box on the table. He opened it in public for the first time. The Virion Fund Equity Support in Aviation. Initial value $30 million USD entirely from his personal assets. The fund's mission: scholarships for black students and others from underrepresented communities, training in aviation, engineering, and emerging tech fields, global leadership programs linking them to executive opportunities. Justice can't stop at firing the guilty, Ezra said in his short speech. Justice must unlock the doors for those who were once stopped at the gate. In the front row sat Malik Jordan, the black passenger who had once whispered, "We've seen this before." He was called up as the fund's first advisory board member. Malik cried, not out of honor, but because his presence no longer felt like an extra body in the wrong seat. The press conference ended with a single sentence from Ezra, no script, no notes. "I didn't build an empire. I just opened a door. The rest is yours to walk through." A week later, a handwritten letter arrived in Virion's company mailbox. No specific addressee, just a line on the envelope. "To the one who stood on my behalf." The handwriting slanted, slightly shaky. "I'm a retired pilot. 10 years ago, I filed a complaint about one of those crew members. It was her. When the complaint was dismissed, I stayed silent. I feared being removed from the team. I feared the system. Today, because of you, I know I was right. And justice doesn't need to shout. It just needs someone willing to stand in the right place." Ezra read the letter alone, under the amber glow of his office light. No one saw his expression. But in that moment, he understood. Change doesn't come from applause. It comes from courage, the kind buried for years, now given a chance to rise. That evening, on social media, Theo Lin posted a final compilation video. Titled "Justice Didn't Yell, It Walked Down the Aisle." The final shot, Ezra, standing in the center of the cabin, navy suit motionless under a quiet breeze. No soundtrack, no slow motion, just a stare, steady, firm, unwavering. Beneath the video, a middle-aged black woman commented, "He didn't just stand in the front row. He stood for all of us, those of us who had been pushed to the back." No one replied. Because justice doesn't need to scream to exist. It only needs to know when to enter the cabin. Silently, steadily, without turning back. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Every click helps us bring more powerful stories of empathy, justice, and silent strength to life. Your support is what fuels this journey. Let's keep standing together and rising higher, one story at a time. Stay safe and inspired.